I'm going to be hosting this session, which is indie games in Orlando. And I would like it if you guys could please put your hands together for our panelists. I'm going to introduce them in order on the table. Up first is Gerard Merritt, who's a course director in the Game Design Masters program. We also have Ricardo, is it Aguilo? Is that right? Okay, yeah, I got it right.
You got it right.
Who is the department chair over Final Project, both in game dev and game design.
Mm-hmm.
And Roy Papp, who is also a course director in the Game Design Master Science program. So I just want to invite you guys, as we're going through the panel, we're pretty open to questions. If you have questions throughout that you feel like you want to ask in the middle, that's cool. You know, the stage manager and the folks in the room have microphones they can bring to you, so I don't think that's an issue. Other than that, I'd like to just go ahead and get started by asking our panelists to talk a little bit about their dual identities, because everybody here is an instructor at Full Sail, but also is in the indie game space making and building some really cool stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'll start off with Gerard. Gerard, can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Oh, yes. Not only do I teach at Full Sail, as you guys already know, but I run a educational gaming company called Select Games, and we design and develop educational games for kids K through 12. So that's what we what we do in a nutshell. I'm the executive producer there as well. So,
Ricardo.
Hey everybody. I am creative director for Depth First Games, which is a local studio. We've been working on stuff since 2010, I want to say, but we released our first title in 2012 for Android and Windows Phone as well. And now we're moving on into the console space. April 1st, we're supposed to gold master a game for PS4 and Vita. So, looking forward to that.
Very cool.
And Roy? Sorry.
How you doing? I'm actually the owner of Zygobot with a partner who actually also works at Zynga. He's a lead artist out there. He was formerly an instructor here as well, and we've been working at Zygobot making mobile games, Android and iOS. Our first game we released was about a year and a half ago, which was Davy Jones, Ocean Odyssey. You could download it right now. Currently we're extending the brand, and we have another game that should be out within the next month. And then we have 2 other titles following that. Cool. So our focus is always on fun and just having a lot of fun building it while we're doing it.
Cool. Well, thanks, folks. So I think what we'd like to do is just start off. I know that a lot of the students and other folks in the room are probably interested in knowing how you got started in the indie game field. And I'll just open this question up to anybody who wants to answer it. How did you get started in the indie field? What drove you to do it? And how did you find your first nugget of success?
I'll go ahead because I feel very passionate about this particular topic. I worked in the game industry for about a decade, working on mostly third-party studios. Now, third-party studios are usually these like tiny studios where you are working for a publisher that is working on a licensed property for something else, and they have really 2 things in mind. They have a budget and a ship date, and then the license is what's really they're counting on selling their title. So a lot gets sacrificed from the side of development. There's a lot that you think should go into games that kind of gets pushed aside as long as you are shipping on time and under budget, because you're tying into movies or you're tying into other releases or you're tying to a particular network's TV show or something like that, and you have to be out at a certain date. And it was a little soul crushing, honestly. There's no better way for me to put it. And so after like doing that for a while, I was like, this is not what I would envision games being put into production. And I know there's good studios out there that don't do this, right? Like a lot of first-party, second-party studios, they have a lot more leeway. But I decided that wanted to branch out, and in 2010, quit my job and got a couple of buddies that were also game developers, and we started working on some stuff. And we could talk more about that later.
I'll let you take it.
So how I got started, I actually trained as an artist and started my first paid job at Radical Entertainment, making games. Worked on Speed Racer, Independence Day, Pro Borders. Had a lot of fun, a lot of multi-platform development, and kind of worked my way up to art director there until I finally left. Formed a studio that we never shipped anything at. We did that for 3 years. So I've always kind of had that desire just to build my own thing and work with people. After that, worked at Cinemaware as an art director that was down in California. And then I left the industry because I was like, I'm sick of this. This is painful. The studio actually kind of just shut down all internal development. Still shipped the title we were working on. And I finally got a call from EA, and they said, hey, we got a cool role. We think you'd fit. So I was like, okay, I went there. That's what got me to Orlando, just down at Tiburon down the street. Got a good taste of working with a big publisher there, of just putting out a lot of product. Well, I was on the management side, so development manager, and Superman Returns, NFL Tour, Madden. A couple titles that we worked on. NFL head coach, can't remember that. That was the first one that I worked on. And I learned a lot about kind of what I liked about development, but I also learned a lot about kind of just how like I enjoy it. Just the fact of building stuff and collaborating with people and making something happen. Through my next stop was here at Full Sail. There was a good opportunity that opened up, so I came over here. I was actually laid off, and it was actually one of the best things that happened. I would say at the time it was like, oh my God, and then the next thing it was like, holy cow, nothing I worry about anymore. And I think that's just the nature of the industry. You immerse yourself in what you're doing, no matter the title. So I've been here 6 years now, but midway through I've done a few like contracting things, working a little more on the educational side, work with some stuff that we did, cognitive type batteries for NASA. So some really exciting things that we did here that were really a lot of fun for us. But had a little break between some of the contracting I was doing and just came up with an idea, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I got to do it. And that kind of what got me started building the first title. And I ended up telling the idea to a very good friend that also worked at EA, John Amos. And he, told him what it was, and he went, okay, I'd love to work with you too. And we just started down the path. He was doing art. I was learning to script. I wouldn't call it programming because I'm not a programmer. But I was always amazed that how engines have moved to a point where they're very accessible. Just like, I can figure out a lot just to get a lot done in there and make it happen. And if I don't know it, I can find somebody that can help me. And it's kind of, it's infectious when you build your stuff and you put it in front of people and they play it, and it's like, it's you. Everything that you want is in there because you want to put it in there. And it's like Ricardo says, it's the compromises you make are your own, and that's what I like about it.
Oh, it's my turn?
It's your turn.
So my story starts out in the summer of 2011 when Select Games came about and birthed. My niece had a learning disability, and what kind of shocked me was just going to the schools and hearing all the negative things, right? And as her uncle, I was like, well, no, not my niece, not my niece. So went home, and I just said, you know what, let's just play some games. And oddly enough, she knew all the achievements, she knew the complicated story, and she actually beat me. And I'm like, wait a second, don't you have a disability? And it just clicked. It just clicked at that very moment that, in this generation with all these different platforms, from cell phones to tablets, PCs to gaming consoles, the education world needs to be there. So that's when Select Games was born. And from that standpoint, what makes us a little bit different than Leapfrog or any of those educational gaming companies is that we focus on game design first. Game first, and then we figure out ways to infuse education into our games. And, our games are free. They're all on mobile. So from Amazon, iOS, Android, Windows, PlayStation Mobile. We're on a lot of platforms, and we're just looking to create cool and innovative tools for parents and educators to use to bring kids back to education.
Thank you, gentlemen. So riffing on something that Roy mentioned, you mentioned the platforms and the engines, and I think this is really key to some of the changes that have been happening in the indie space. So from that perspective, I think over the past almost 10 years now, engines have really, really advanced. The engine tech has. How do you feel that has impacted the indie scene and the AAA scene by comparison? And how do you think it plays into in what we're seeing in the indie marketplace today?
I think there's an accessibility that's there. It is easy to put something out. At the same time, some stuff shouldn't go out. And you see it in the store when you download stuff, and you're like, oh, groan, I can't believe I just downloaded this thing. It was free, I wasted my time. And that's one of the painful parts about it, but at the same time, that's what makes it very great. When I first started in this, if you didn't build that engine, you didn't put anything in that there. It's like everything you wanted, like you had to think, hey, oh, do I want transparency? Do I want an alpha channel? Do I want anything that you think you want? You have to state it. And it kind of trains you to think about building games in a different way. Whereas now the engines, you can just a la carte. You go, hey, what does it have? The asset store for Unity as well as Unreal. They give you a point to start. So you could say, hey, I want to do a Angry Birds style game. You could right now download for free an Angry Birds clone that you could actually build and start to learn how the structure of that will work. It's not a plug and play. You can't just like launch it out at the store and start raking in money. But it's a good entry point to understand what it takes to make it happen.
And not only has the technology in engines gotten a lot, the barrier to entry has gotten a lot lower, but also the cost, right? 10 years ago, I think the only affordable engine I can think of for 10 years ago is probably Torque. And I don't know if you've ever worked with Torque or ever heard of Torque, but I have, and it's tough. It's it's really rough, or at least it was. At least it was, back in 2006. Some time has passed since then. So like now you can download either Unreal or Unity for free, and you can start working right away. And you only end up really paying them if you make money. So it's a great time to be an indie developer.
Yeah, I believe with the new advancement in engine technology allows people to prototype quicker. I think, and I believe that should be the actual angle people should use engines for, to prove that their game design actually can either work or be fun, entertaining, etc. As far as pushing it to the store, I do share your sentiments. Some things shouldn't be pushed to the store. That's why we have over 2 billion mobile gaming apps right now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I really believe it should be used for prototyping more than anything else.
Yeah, we obviously ship very few games in comparison, but we constantly prototyping games, and that's what most of Dev First games is like. We have a ton of prototypes that we have never shipped, and because they weren't good enough. They weren't good enough for the asset store. Or for the store.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that prototyping angle that is in the engines. Like, all of a sudden an idea will come across me, and I'll be like, oh my God, I gotta download a bunch of assets that might serve my needs, so I can whip out a prototype real fast, show it to some people, and then go, great idea that I can work on whenever, and then throw it off to the side and focus on the immediate goal of the product we're trying to ship. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the challenges I think we all face. We work full time. But when we go home at night, we're sitting there and we're like, okay, I gotta keep my nose to the grindstone, plug away, keep focused, know what I want to build, and keep pushing it to the level that I want the product to be at.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Some hands.
Oh, there's hands. Okay, so we have a couple of hands. Maybe we'll take some questions now, and then we'll go back to the list of questions we have.
Yeah, I was for the Scenic Games. I was wondering how did you actually, like, you told us how you started out, but was it really hard to start out like building and getting a lot of people and to actually join your Scenic Games? or was it already there and you just joined in?
So it's select, but that's okay.
I'm sorry.
Everybody always has a hard time saying it. So in the very beginning, so 2011, I didn't come out with a game till August 2012. Yes. Is it hard? Yes. Because you have all these great paper concepts, and people are looking at you like, okay, where's your game?
Yep.
I can actually say Full Sail has been very instrumental in helping Select Games grow through the serious intern game track program here in the Game Design Masters. Being able to have students involved in the game development process, with Select Games has been just truly an eye-opening experience, because students have actually come up with some really great design concepts, and we have like 3 more coming out within the next 2 weeks. We'll have possibly our first Facebook game. So, it's quite amazing at this point right now. I'm very shocked to see where we're at today. I see hands and.
Yes, hello. My question to you guys is regarding Unreal and Unity. Do you foresee the industry going more towards one than the other, or like should I, as a game developer, focus on one over the other, or should I treat them both equally and learn them both with equal force?
I think it depends on what you want to build.
Yes.
Really.
I agree with that.
And it's good to know a little bit about each one, just so you have some familiarity. But I think there's a point where when I look at Unreal, we're building in Unity, by the way, and I look at it and go, that's awesome. But I've invested so much time in Unity right now that to go and add another engine and all the stuff that goes to make it work is actually detrimental to my efforts. Like, I'll poke around, but I'm not building a product in there, not immediately. Unity will do what I need, whether it's good. Like, I think, it's all about market share for these engines. The more people that use it, the more that they're gonna and have successful games that actually return an investment for them. That's ones that's gonna rise to the top. For you, or anyone that wants to do it, just pick one. Anybody that's going to look at you afterwards, if you're looking to be hired or do anything, they're going to just say, look at what they've done with the tools that they had. And they're not going to go, oh, it's not this or it's not that, right? It's kind of like that Max Maya thing. It's like, if you have enough experience in the one, I believe the skills actually transpose. You just have to learn a little bit about the interface and kind of some of the gotchas are within it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I think that if you learn one, you're going to learn some of the other one, and it's going to happen. You're going to open up the other one. And it's going to be a little bit, you're going to stumble around, but then you're going to start figuring out that there's a lot of parallels between the two of them, and yeah, I mean, just pick one that you want to learn. I can tell you at Dev First Games, we have done prototypes in both of them, and it's just depends on kind of like the game we want to make. And we kind of pick one, and then we just go, and
Yeah, like when I'm looking at, sorry, Gerard, I got you there. I often will look at games that have been done with the engine and kind of say, hey, do I think it would suit my needs? I know that, what was it, Bad Piggy, I think it was. The Angry Birds guys, they used Unity. I'm like, oh, it's very easy to apply and build 2D games in there. When you think Unreal, you think Unreal. So, if you're going to do a first-person shooter, it's perfect for that, although it is far more robust. If you download it today, you'll actually get a good idea of what you can do with it. So I'd say your first step, just load it up, take a look, see if it suits what you want to do, and if it appeals to the way you like to work.
Did you want to add something, Gerard?
No.
All right. I think for the moment, we seem to have cleared up the hand cube. Unless there's hands over here
there's
that I
one
can't
more.
see.
Can't see me.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sorry. Yes, for Select Games, when you're saying that, because I'm doing my bachelor's and I'm about to graduate in 2 months, and I'm thinking of getting my master's degree. You're saying that Full Sail works closely with you guys, with the great ideas and all that. Those comps that the students do for Select Games or probably for pre-approval. do they get into your games, or they just, calm said that you'll think they're good, and just give their opinion to students?
So the mobile games that we put out, I run them very much like AAA titles. They all have credit screens. So the students all get credit for anything that they've worked on that's out in the market.
All right. So we'll come back and take a couple more questions. Maybe if we can get a couple panel questions in just real quick, and then we'll come back and take a few more questions, because some of these questions may be a little universal. One of the things I know that some of the folks here are wondering, because a few people told me they were going to ask, was what is the biggest challenge that you guys have run into in establishing an indie presence? As you know, because you've all worked at AAA studios, but that's going to be a different beast, right? So what is the biggest challenge you've had on this road toward indie development?
I think it has been like kind of selling the idea of Depth First Games. So like I'm gonna like do a little shameless promotion here, but Depth First Games kind of like a hippie commune for game development, and the way that we work is, hey man, do you want to work on games? Cool. Do you have some free time? Cool. You probably need other gainful employment, and then come on board and start working on stuff. And that's why I said earlier we have like tons of prototypes that we get off the ground, but we turning those into games is a little bit harder. Turning to like finishing those games a little bit harder. So kind of establishing that community of people that want to come work with us and are taking us seriously, because at first it was like, oh, you guys are just saying that you're working on games, you're not actually doing it, right? And then once we started like actually doing prototypes and got our first game out there, then people got a little more serious about joining up and working on stuff. And we're, like I said, about to launch our another big game for us. So that was establishing that presence. Yeah, pretty hard.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I think the biggest challenge that I ever face is time. It's like never have time. I got 2 kids. I have a family that demands a lot of my attention. So it's I saw there was a movie Holes. At the end of it, the author was talking about when he wrote the book, and he said every night I'd sit down and maybe I'd work an hour on it, and then I'd finish and I'd say that was nothing, but what he said really resonated afterwards, which was a lot of little nothings add up to something. And so at night, it might be 11 o'clock. I'm like, oh, geez, I gotta work tomorrow. I gotta go in. I'm kind of at the end of the day. I'm like, wait, if I just 1 hour, let me try to put this screen in. Let me try to make this happen. And those things add up over time. And it's just persevering through that is kind of, just to keep you motivated and kind of keep your eye on what you want to do. The other thing I think that is the big challenge is that your weaknesses just shine through when you're an indie developer with very few people. It's like whatever you can't do, you're going to spend hours and hours trying to figure out. And if you just go outside your comfort zone, talk to somebody, in 10 minutes they can resolve a problem that you spent weeks on. And I think sometimes you just want to do it all yourself, but just go out, ask a few questions. You'll find those people that can actually help you get to the next level of what you want to do. And I've always been amazed at how willing people are to help at times for just like what you might think is significant to you is a very small effort on their part. So I always try to, at the same time, give back. So when people are building something, showing a game or design, try to give them something useful that they can actually take away and build on themselves.
I think they addressed the beginning stages, right? And some of you will probably hurdle through that. I would like to discuss what you do after you have that game, right? You have that game, well, what do you do with it? Is it Twitter? Is it Facebook? Is it family? Is it, trying to get it out there on Gama Sutra? You really have to think about how you're going to expose this market to the game that you have. And it's not just the social media things. It's not just the traditional advertisement things. You really have to get your game in front of people and in front of players. That's what's going to make the significant difference. That's what's going to take you from, stage 1 to stage 20, is getting those people playing your games and getting that feedback, and hopefully that you can pivot fast enough to take any critical feedback and then make those changes and implement those changes in your game just to take it to that next level.
Thank you, gentlemen. Nick, if you want to go ahead, we can take some more questions now. So.
Hey, my name is Jacob Moss. I'm an aspiring environment artist. I want to thank the guy from Select Games. I was actually just about to ask that question. Thank you very much for talking about that. But I wanted to actually get a bit more deep into it, if possible. So this is for all of you, especially Roy. You were talking about a little bit, especially since you were like a manager over at Tehran Games. When there's hundreds, if not thousands, of games that are being put out there, either in the mobile markets, over in the Steam market, you see them all over the place, and sometimes they have to get greenlit. And there's some even really great games that never get greenlit. And you start to wonder, how do you actually get your game noticed? How can people actually get to notice you when there's already so many of them just like yours, if not close to it, that are also trying to do the exact same thing? How would you take the steps to do so?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Blatant self-promotion, buy my Davy Jones Buddy Shark game and hope it's broadcasted over the internet so everybody knows. I think you're really talking about the secret sauce, right? That we all want to try to have. It's like, just get people to play the game. I know that what we built, and I think these guys would all agree with what they built. They built a good product, and it's just like, what can you do, and do as much as you can. It's not like we have like huge budgets like the AAA studio where you can go, I can just turn on the cash hose and spray the audience until they get the game.
And that doesn't always work, by the way.
It doesn't always work.
Turning on the cash hose doesn't always result in you getting
Yeah.
one sense.
Yeah, and even showing up, talking, showing your game, it doesn't always translate into sales. So you're always looking for those things that do work, that do resonate, and trying to find that. And if you find it, tell me.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything, Gerard?
Yeah. Oh well. I mean, I'll stand on this point. It's getting in front of players more than anything else. More than turning on the cash hose, and hopefully that marketing will take off. If you have a good game and people play it, they will talk about it. They will get their friends to play it. Their friends will get their friends to play it, and it'll just become a viral experience. Some of the games you guys play probably didn't spend any money on marketing, but you guys play it, downloaded it, and then purchased it. So it's really getting in front of players that are just like yourselves.
So for us, the thing that amazed us is exactly what Gerard here is saying. Is we got a press kit out there for Gel Tennis, which was our first Android kit game, and honestly, if you ask me, I was like, we're gonna get like 50 downloads, right? Because I maybe know 50 people I can pester to download this game. So we put the press kit out there. And the game was released in English only because, there's going to be 50 people that download it. And I know all of them. And so we put out this press kit, and all of a sudden, after we finished our internal testing, all of a sudden we see these huge spikes of downloads, and they're coming from France. And we're like, who the hell do we know in France? Like, what is happening here? And then Spain, and we were like starting to really, really freak out. So we're like, so we need to do eFigs so we can get all these other language packs in there so that we can help these people play the games. But what had happened was that somebody in a game reviewer, a Parisian game reviewer, reviewed the game and gave it a really good review. And all the reviews that we got for Gel Tennis were really positive. And every time one of these YouTube reviewers or would get out there and say like, "Hey man, I played this game and it was cool," we'd get like a spike of downloads. So that's it. Make something worth playing, and then hope people play it.
Yet hope is not a strategy.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And I'll just add one more thing from the small business perspective. It's really easy to get the impression that that things are overnight successes, and that's very seldom the case. Like Rovio released, I think it was 91 games before they hit big with Angry Birds. Yeah. 83. Okay, so I was in the ballpark. And
We have a question online back here.
A question online.
okay, yeah,
Awesome.
let's hear it.
Hi. What were the biggest risks ahead in deciding to become an indie developer, and how were those risks prepared for?
So for me, it was super scary because I quit my job and started an indie studio, and it was I didn't like up and quit. I didn't like get up one day and go like I quit. It was very much more like hey, don't sign me up for the next project, because that's how projects get selected in studios. Usually well ahead of time that you're going to be working on a project. So I was like, I will get you to Gold Master on this project, and then I'm leaving, and I'll help you train up a designer. And that happened. Like that game came to an end, and then I was like, I said I was going to leave. So I'm leaving. And so I quit, and then I started working on one of our first prototypes. And I was very, very enthusiastic and gullible and everything else that you can associate with having my hopes up. And we were many times very close to signing a deal for that game, but it never materialized. So then things got really scary because I was running out of money. And nobody was buying the game. It's a really cool game, by the way. Hopefully one day we'll get to release it. We kept talking to publishers, and publishers, kept kind of egging us on. Like every time somebody would play the game, they would say like, "Man, this is really cool. We totally want to pick this up." And one of them, I'll give you a little story right quick of one of them how it went. It was like, yes, absolutely. Talk to this person. We're gonna pick up this game. We're gonna do it. But Thanksgiving's coming up, and nobody really wants to sign documents over Thanksgiving, right? And so it's like, oh no, I understand, right? So Thanksgiving comes and goes, and I'm like, hey, what's up? It's like, yeah, most people take off early for Christmas, and but we love you and we love your game, and you guys are so awesome. Christmas is a thing, so wait a little while, and they're like, well, people don't get back from New Year's, and I'm like, I understand, and they're like, Three Kings Day, and then, and I was, and eventually it got to the point where it was like, no, we don't want to sign your game, but that was months of spending money on the studio and getting really nervous. So what I would say to avoid that is have gainful employment and start an indie studio, which I think is closer to what these gentlemen, the smart guys in the room, did, as opposed to the crazy one. So,
I would like to chime in. I would definitely say you have to plan. Stepping out on faith is one thing, but having a plan is another. Making sure that you have the resources and the wherewithal to maintain your indie studio. So, I would say that would be the smart thing to do. You can still do it, but it's really about your passion. So, like Roy said earlier, I stay up constantly till 3, 4 in the morning and still wake up and come here. But it's because I have the passion and the drive for it. So you really have to look into yourself, about that.
Yeah, and I would say that, it's being indie, you're always thinking where do we want to spend the money when we do spend money on things? I've spent a lot at the asset store of things I've never used. I thought they would be the silver bullet, but they were not. But you learn. And so, that being one small piece of it. The other that, the next most valuable thing is your time. And so you got to be willing to, it's I think that's the hardest thing to mitigate. When do you choose to do it? because you don't want to, you know, miss out on just living your life with your family after work. So, you know, it's making sure that that doesn't fall by the wayside. And you know, for me, doing the indie stuff, it's always after my family, right? And so, right, because I have a full-time job, come home, spend time with the family, they go to sleep, then I start to work. And so that's how I mitigate what I think is the most valuable thing you have.
Thanks, guys.
My question's not so much about indie gaming specifically, but about game design. And I'm not sure if you guys ever look for individuals who do game design, but if you were going to look for individuals who do game design, or what you think another indie company might look for, what specific skill set would you say would be the most important skill set? I've seen this question asked a lot, and a lot of times I get the answer, you need to learn everything. So I need to know where to start.
No. So being a game designer is a little bit about knowing a little bit of everything. You know, they weren't lying to you. You know, because when you're designing a game about whatever about a spider that whatever, you know, that does things, jumps around, right? You have to be able to draw from life experiences and other games and other people's mechanics and put all those things together and figure out a way to push that out and communicate it to other people. But that is the key that I think that you're looking for, is what is the thing that makes a really good game designer, and where can you start is communication. Game designers are not, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, the people that come up with the ideas. That's cool if you do. That makes you like really cool game designer, also came up with the idea. Game designers are people that collect the thoughts of everybody around them, from like the artists to the programmers to the janitor on staff, like anybody that you talk to that knows about your game and they say something that's insightful, you are the person that collects those thoughts, works them out, figures out a way that makes them something that you can implement and communicates that back to others. So the most valuable skill for me that I would look for in a game designer is somebody that communicates well. So case in point, like if you happen to be an introvert, which I am, and I know it doesn't play well that I'm an introvert, right? But I'm totally an introvert, and I just force myself to be more outlandish and ostentatious and just be louder and bigger than what I feel like I am, because it helps me communicate with people. It helps me put myself out there. It helps me be in the mix. It helps me be in the conversation. So being able to communicate, and part of that is being able to kind of play an extrovert on TV. You don't have to be one, but you have to be able to play one on TV. Those are like the key things I think I would look for in a game designer.
I would say I would look for that person that doesn't just write it down. It's easy to write down the most awesome thing ever, right? There's probably a million scripts in Hollywood that are like, this is a blockbuster. It's another to put it together and start to have something somebody can experience. So whether it's paper, whether it's you know, a quick hack of an existing game engine, or you know, something like an Angry Birds, as I mentioned before, or if you're in Little Big Planet and you start building an idea or levels in there, just like try to make the experience, right? Whatever tools you have, and capture that. And I think that's when you go out and you're talking to people, you have something they can actually engage in, because that's what games are, right? You're engaging in something. So if you can get people doing that out of the gate, I think you're ahead of the game. That was a bad pun.
No, I would just piggyback off these guys. Communicating coherently and clearly on multiple mediums. So not just verbally, not just descriptive words, visual art. You have to be able to do it on all those mediums. So people can actually, you know, because some people can read it and say, I get it. Some people can see it and say they get it. Some people can listen to you and say they get it. But you have to be able to do it on all those different mediums.
I'm gonna just say something like just to piggyback off Gerard right quick. If you can't draw, which I can't draw to save my life, what I would do is would get a best friend who's an artist, and my best friend is my partner in Depth First Games, and he can draw. And I tell him like, these are the things that you should draw, and then he's like, oh yeah, I got it, I can do that. Yep. And so make friends with artists if you can't draw yourself. That's my advice.
Absolutely.
I would also, like, when it comes to that, it's like Google SketchUp. There's tons of free models out there. There are quick ways to visualize.
I am super awesome stick figure artist. Like,
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, it's like, I think, and even when you're prototyping, I'm always like adding to the prototype kit. Got to have dice, got to have an hourglass in there, chess pieces, anything, grids, hex maps, whatever. Those are the kind of the tools of the trade as you start to explore your ideas. So nothing's off limits. Videotape it. Post it on YouTube, I guess.
All right, I think we have another question coming up.
All right, when you guys are putting together a game, do you usually use the same team or do you look to collaborate with others?
We use the same core team because Depth First Games has a core. But like I said earlier, we're kind of like a hippie commune. So sometimes, people that worked on a previous project, they're like, I did it. I got my name on a credit and I'm out. And there's new people that are like, oh man, you actually shipped something? I want to work with you guys because you ship things. And so, we have the same core team, but we work with a ton of different people.
Yeah, same as me. John and I were the owners of Zygobot. People will come and go. Whether all of a sudden we'll have somebody that we'll need a sound, and we might find a sound guy that can help us out. Currently, we have actually a past grad that just showed up on my doorstep, kind of fortuitous, and said, "Hey, I'd love to do some music." I gave him, I said, "Hey, here's what I'd like it to sound like, a little bit like Jaws, but not get sued." And he did an awesome job. And now I'm like, oh my, this is just what I would say is, like, as you start to build it, people will show up that will help you. And it's a funny thing, like, just start doing it, and those people that you need will slowly make their way in. Some are going to show up and disappear real quick, but there's a few that'll just be kind of those people that'll stick with you for a little bit longer, and you'll get it done. But you got to stick, kind of stick to it.
I would say at Select Games, everyone has the opportunity to pitch a game, so anybody can be a game designer. I give them the right to. At the end of the day, I either bless it or I put it on the shelf. And I'll give you one great example and a shameless plug. Declaration of Independence, our first history game, is actually out right now. You can download it at our website, selectgames.com. And so the team that actually, I'm a first-person fan, so I'm like a first-person shooter, third-person shooter, gun and a grenade, right? So they pitched a game very much like a Zelda / Minecraft. So I'm looking at them like, this sucks. I don't get it. They actually went and they made a paper prototype, took their iPhone camera and showed people playing it and proved, hey, this works and people will want to play it. I said, build it. They went out, they built it. All the art, all the music, and today it's been out for 48 hours now. So I don't ever say I know everything. I always tell the teams, if you want a game design, you have to prove it to me. I know I don't know everything in games, and I know I have a very, very jaded view because I love first-person shooters, right? So I say, prove it to me. Get other people playing it. Come with the data to support your game design. So that's what we do.
All right. Anybody else? I guess.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, Sid.
Hi. From indie game perspective, is the quantity of number of games shipped important or the quality of a game which has been shipped? Like in a year or two, is it good for an indie game company to show that we have shipped 3 games or we have shipped 1 awesome game? So which is a better one?
I would say it, like when we finished Davy Jones, and we had the guy from I gotta keep going, right? And we had some of the guys from Wargaming. This was last Christmas, not the one past, but the one before. Some of their producers were here, and they'd worked on things like the Lego Universe and Thief and some really awesome games, and putting it in front of them, having them play it, and go, this is fun. I'm like, that's that point where you're like, it was worth spending over a year on it. And I don't think that would have been the case if we would have just been let's put it in the box, pop it out there. The flip side, though, is, perfection can be your enemy in all of this, right? It's like, you're always trying to make everything perfect, and that's not necessary, but your weakness will show. So get rid of that.
I would say the answer to your question is yes. You should focus on one good game that you're going to actually ship once you discover it by doing a ton of prototypes. So you're going to be doing both a lot of games and then the one game that you're actually going to focus and polish and get out there. And I think that Roy is completely correct, where the perfect is the enemy of the good. So you just got to get it good enough and get it out there.
Guys, we have time for one last question over here.
Hello? Okay. Since all of you have dabbled in both the AAA title industry and the indie game industry, everyone said there's a difference between AAAs and indie gaming. But when you transition between each other, which is the hardest thing to adapt to? And what is the most challenging thing to get over when you transition?
I would have to say the culture. You have to really know where you're going. Culture makes such a big difference when working in different studios, even from indie to indie, AAA to AAA. Do your homework. Everything that's shiny and glitters isn't always the best thing. Just make sure you do your homework, because it may look good on paper, it may look good on TV, but when you're there, you don't want to hate your life and hate your job, right? We get into games because we love what we do and we have a passion for it. You don't want to work somewhere where it kills that. Mm-hmm. So make sure you just do your homework. For me, I say it's culture. Oh, yeah. I say it's the culture.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting one when I kind of think of it, because it's like you're your own weakness, so you need to do everything. In bigger teams, there's lots of people doing a lot of different roles. So there are vast kind of, it's like, if you're at your kitchen table, your culture's you. So, indie development is a lot of loaning out loud.
You may hate you.
I not hate you. Yeah. But when you're working with a lot of other people, there's a lot of ideas, lots of egos, lots of shareholders at many different levels that you always have to kind of deal with. And, it's like, this game has to be out by Christmas, or, everything, Armageddon. Whereas when you're building it yourself, you can sit there and go, yeah, I wanted it out, but I need to fix this. And you can have that luxury. And I think that's what makes building games on an indie side very appealing, right? I'm not tied to the Christmas release. I'm not competing in that market. Mobile games can be on the shelf for 2 years, and then somebody picks them up, writes an article, and bang, they do well. So, that's the nice thing about it. It's not like it's on the shelf at Target or wherever, where it's like, if it doesn't sell in 3 months, it's out the door, right? Virtual space is very different.
I was just gonna echo what Roy says. They're kind of becoming accustomed to not having the accountability of having to ship something on time and under budget. Was a little hard to wrap my head around for a little bit, but it was a lot cooler. So, but it was hard to adjust to.
I think we're getting the signal to start wrapping it up. Is that right?
That's correct. We're out of time.
Okay. So I wanted to thank you so much for attending the session today. And I especially want to thank our guests, Roy, Gerard and Ricardo, for coming out and for providing answers to all the questions. I believe I'm going to stick around. I think these gentlemen, some of them at least, will stick around as well if you want to talk afterwards. Thanks again for coming. Take care and have a good evening.